Welcome to the Jedi Ranger. I'm John Berry555, and I'm continuing my series of Mash Retro reviews with Season 3, Episode 9, Alcoholics Unanimous. So in this episode, Frank bans alcohol at the 4077. Total prohibition. He even goes as far to hide the alcohol used for medical purposes, which also shows how not great of a doctor Frank really is. He also closes the Officers Club, which, by the way, Frank is the reason they have the Officers Club. Way back in, I want to say it was Season 1, the 477 saved the son, I believe, of a general, and as a reward, he gave Hawkeye and Chopper passes to Tokyo, but Frank got a Officers Club, and he's closing it in this episode. Yeah, and most of the camp is not happy with Frank banning alcohol. Now, I will say, personally, yeah, you probably shouldn't be drinking alcohol, but I do understand that lots of people will drink alcohol as a coping mechanism, especially in war. Some way of trying to, not think about all the death and destruction around you. I understand it, I don't necessarily approve of it, but I'm not going to be like Frank and force my opinion, force my behavior on others. That's just rude, mean, obnoxious, whatever term you want to use. So that's the overall premise of the episode, but there's a lot more to discuss. There's a subplot involving Father Mulcahy, which is actually not too much in terms of development, but it does give us some insight into his character. One, he does not handle alcohol very well because he doesn't drink, which makes sense. He is a Catholic priest after all, and while I'm sure there's a lot who do hit the sacramental wine, Father Mulcahy isn't one of them. And Frank approaches Father Mulcahy to give a sermon on the evils of drink. Father Mulcahy is nervous, so Klinger offers to give him a little bit of alcohol, but that little bit was way too much for Father Mulcahy because he does not have the experience. And he's unable to give his sermon, and then a scuffle breaks out, and then Margaret gives Frank some I think it was some brandy because Frank got basically injured in the scuffle and she was nursing him. And Hawkeye declares prohibition is over. The 18th Amendment has been repealed. And yeah. Just like the 18th Amendment in real life at the 477, nobody followed it except for the people enforcing it, and even then, it fell apart. At least it didn't get any organized crime going on in the 477 during their prohibition phase. There's several other things too. The episode actually begins with them showing a movie that they would have actually been shown during Korea, not made after the Korean War, and basically during that is when Frank dismantles and gets rid of Hawkeye and Trapper's. Still, they're not happy about it, so they start looking for other sources of alcohol. And that's actually when they discover that Frank has hidden the medical alcohol as well. And they also discover that Margaret has a secret stash of alcohol as well. Because, she drinks. But unlike Hawkeye and Trapper, she seems to drink much more in moderation. But no, they share her, I think it was brandy together, and they get drunk and Frank gets mad. Of course. But also this shows that Margaret is not as strict in some ways as Frank, that she's much more understanding of why people drink, much more understanding that there's different forms of behavior, shows her a different character, and, she's willing to hang out and drink with Hawkeye and Trapper. I would say willing. The way they frame the scene leading up to it is a bit, I'm gonna go with icky. I presume that was just a bad filmmaking choice and not the intention of the story, but it could have gone either way. Especially because before that, they do a joke where Chopper basically says his wife is a bad driver and there is laugh track. I hate those jokes. Just because they're women does not mean they're a bad driver. Now, Chopper's wife might legitimately be a bad driver, but the point of that joke was, haha, women bad drivers. It's a joke that has not aged well, but people still unfortunately make today. Meanwhile, I think really most of the bad drivers are driving those lifted pickup trucks with truck nuts, or they're driving Teslas because screw the libs, because libs no longer like Musk. Anyhow, let's move past that all and talk more about the episode. There's also a scene too where Father Mulcahy is giving his Sunday services, and the only one in attendance is Klinger, who, despite being an atheist, likes having the excuse to wear his white gloves. And then he does his Protestant service, which Hawkeye and Trapper attend because, while they can't get any of the sacramental wine, they decide they should try to pray for booze. It's intended to be humor, but it is actually kind of humorous and fits nicely showing that Father McKay does not have many people attending his services, thus his nervousness later on in the episode at the service where Frank has ordered him to preach temperance and avoidance of alcohol, and also has ordered all of the camp, explains why he's nervous and why he might be willing to try some alcohol to try to ease his nerves. And yeah, it lines up really nicely how those different beats line up. There's also one other scene of particular note I would like to mention. There's a scene between Frank and Margaret where Frank is talking about his justifications for alcohol and all that, and Margaret reveals that she does drink a little bit. But there's also another point part. Margaret also compares Frank to her father, talking about personality traits, things that she marries in her father, and that's why she also admires Frank. There is some people out there, we'll get into some deep psychology stuff, but talk about how sometimes daughters like finding, traits in potential partners are also exhibited in their father, especially traits that they admire. And Frank, being one of the most, for lack of a better term, military-bearing men on the 477, could explain why Margaret has an attraction to him, because those are the same traits that she admired in her father. Again, we're getting into some deep psychology stuff, which I don't quite fully understand, but it does also say something. But when we take later episodes of MASH, which I haven't yet discussed with Colonel Parter's arrival also hallmarked a major change in Margaret's character. She had another person at the 477 she could look up to and respect, and one that she could basically see a fatherly or grandfatherly figure in, and I think that contributed a lot to her being able to develop a character, that she had a new role model in her life that portrayed a form of, for lack of a better term, healthy masculinity. And you can tell after that she started distancing herself from Frank, started looking into other men as well, and was able to have healthier relationships with everyone at the camp, all because she had a new role model that she could respect in a leadership position, and at most it would become a father or grandfatherly type relationship. Really helped her character. But that is a bit of stuff and a lot of psychology stuff which I don't fully understand, so the comment section is down there. So that covers most of the stuff in Alcoholics Unanimous. There's some other good bits here and there, including a bit where Frank is trying to get Radar to admit that the men don't like Frank. And while Radar does try to avoid answering, he does say, "Oh no, they don't like you, they just hate your guts." Which I think is just a good joke and how I really want to end the episode. Frank, we don't hate you, we just hate your guts. Anyhow, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give this video a like and share. Also, consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date on all my latest content. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the force be with you, always.